June 15, 1961. Harlem. A message left behind pulls Bumpy Johnson into the darkest hour of his life. With 2 hours left, every empire he built becomes meaningless next to one name: his daughter. This isn't a crime story. It's a countdown to a father's breaking point. When the clock hits 0, what will remain of Bumpy Johnson? To understand how it all led here, the story goes back to where it truly began. June 15, 1961. 8:07 in the morning. Maybelle Johnson walked into her daughter's bedroom. The bed was made. The window was open. And on the pillow, something that made her blood freeze. Not a note. Something worse. A letter written in blood. Dark red, still wet, staining the white pillowcase. Next to it, Ruthie's yellow ribbon, the one she wore every day, soaked in blood. Fresh blood. Maybelle's hands shook as she picked up the letter. The words were scrawled in thick, deliberate strokes. "We have your daughter. $5 million. 10:07 this morning. No police, no games." And at the bottom, a line that made her knees buckle. Every 10 minutes late, one finger. Her scream brought Bumpy running up the stairs, 3 at a time. When he saw the letter, when he saw the blood-soaked ribbon, his face didn't change. No panic. No tears. Just a terrible, cold stillness. Maybelle collapsed into his arms, sobbing. "Ellsworth, they took her. They took our baby." Bumpy didn't speak. He walked to the bed, picked up the letter, brought it close to his face, touched the blood, rubbed it between his fingers. Then he did something strange. He smelled it. His eyes narrowed. Not hers. "What?" Maybelle looked up, confused, terrified. "This isn't Ruthie's blood." Bumpy's voice was flat, controlled. "It's animal blood. Pig, maybe cow. They're playing mind games. Ellsworth, we have to call the police." Maybelle grabbed his arm. Bumpy turned to her, and for the first time she saw something terrifying in his eyes. Not fear. Calculation. "No. Police show up, Ruthie dies in 30 minutes. These people know what they're doing." The clock on Ruthie's nightstand read 8:09. 2 hours. They had 2 hours. What happened next was what separated Bumpy Johnson from every other man in Harlem. 8:11 in the morning. 4 minutes had passed since Maybelle found the note. Bumpy stood completely still in the center of Ruthie's room. Eyes closed, face drained of color. 90 seconds of absolute silence. Maybelle watched him, not understanding what he was doing. Inside Bumpy's mind, images flashed like lightning. 3 weeks ago. A black sedan parked across the street. Same car, 3 different days. He'd noticed but dismissed it. 1 week ago. Ruthie mentioned a man at the corner store asking which school she attended. Bumpy had warned her but thought nothing more of it. 3 days ago. A photograph of his family at church arrived in the mail. The corner torn off. No message. Bumpy's eyes opened. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "They've been watching us for 3 weeks. That means someone inside talked." "How do you know?" Maybelle's voice cracked. "They know Ruthie leaves for school at 7:30. They know our exact schedule. They know when to strike." Bumpy held up the bloody letter. "They're demanding $5 million in 2 hours. That's impossible to gather." "Then what?" "They don't want the money, Maybelle. They want me panicking." Bumpy's jaw tightened. 2 hours isn't enough time to collect $5 million. They know that, which means Ruthie was never supposed to survive this. Maybelle's hand flew to her mouth. "No, Ellsworth, no. I'm not letting that happen." Bumpy walked toward the phone in the hallway. "But we do this my way." The call lasted 10 seconds. 8:15 that morning. Bumpy dialed a number he only used for emergencies. Junie picked up on the first ring. Code red, Smalls, 8 minutes. "Boss, what's happening?" Bumpy hung up. No explanations. No discussions. Just orders. When he arrived at Small's Paradise 8 minutes later, 7 men were already waiting in the back room. Not his usual crew of 37 soldiers. Just 7. The sharpest, deadliest, most loyal men in his organization. Men who wouldn't ask questions. Men who'd walk into hell if Bumpy asked. Bumpy entered and placed a watch on the table. The ticking filled the room like a countdown to execution. 1 hour and 44 minutes. His voice was ice. That's how long my daughter has left to live. Every face in the room turned to stone. Someone kidnapped Ruthie this morning before 7:30. They're demanding $5 million by 10:07. They won't get it. Bumpy looked each man in the eye. Because I'm not paying. I'm taking her back, and whoever did this will regret the day they were born. He pointed at Junie. Check every phone call that came to my house in the last 3 weeks. Someone on the inside talked. Find them. Willie. Find every truck capable of transporting a person out of Harlem between midnight and 7:30 this morning. Registrations owners' last known locations. I want addresses in 30 minutes. Clarence. Go to every one of Geneviese's men. Apply pressure. Break bones if you have to. Someone knows something. Marcus. Bank records. Anyone withdrawing large amounts of cash in the past month. These people needed money to plan this operation. The men stood and dispersed like smoke into the morning streets. Bumpy stayed behind, staring at the watch on the table. 8:26. 1 hour and 41 minutes. Then his phone rang. 8:39 that morning. Father Divine's voice came through, shaking. Bumpy, I need to tell you something. Talk. 2 men Italians were at my church last week. They were asking about Ruthie, what school she goes to, what time she leaves home. They weren't quiet about it either. Bumpy's grip on the phone tightened. Who were they? I don't know their names, but Bumpy. Father Divine paused. They wanted me to hear them. They made sure I'd tell you. They wanted you to know. The line went silent for 3 seconds. Then Bumpy understood. This is bait. What? They want me chasing Italians. They want me thinking this is Genovese. Bumpy's mind moved like a chess master seeing 10 moves ahead. While I'm breaking down doors in Little Italy, they're hiding Ruthie somewhere I'd never look. He hung up and turned to the 3 men still in the room. His next decision would either save his daughter or cost him everything. Willie, take 3 men and follow the Italian lead. Make noise, bang on doors, let them think I'm coming that direction. Willie frowned. And you? Bumpy's eyes were cold fire. I'm going the opposite way. If they want me looking at Genovese, the real answer is somewhere they think I'll never search. The clock read 8:43. 1 hour and 24 minutes remained. The hunt had begun. 8:52 that morning. 1 hour and 15 minutes left. Willie burst through the door of Small's Paradise, out of breath, sweat dripping down his face. Boss found 3 trucks, all suspicious, all moved in and out of Harlem between midnight and dawn. Bumpy didn't hesitate. Split into 3 teams, hit all locations simultaneously. Junie stepped forward. Boss, if we're wrong, then one of the 3 is right. Bumpy's voice cut like steel. Move now. The men scattered. 3 teams, 3 addresses, 3 chances to find Ruthie alive. But finding the right location was only half the battle. 9:03 that morning, Willie kicked down the door of a warehouse in the Bronx, gun drawn, ready for a fight. The room was empty. No Ruthie, no kidnappers. Just silence and shadows. But something wasn't right. Willie touched the wall. Warm. Not cold like an abandoned building should be. He crouched low, ran his hand across the concrete floor. And there caught between 2 cracks a single strand of blonde hair. The exact color of Ruthie's. Willie grabbed his radio. They were here. 20 minutes ago, maybe less. They moved her. Bumpy's voice crackled back. Stay there. Search everything. They left that hair on purpose. 4 minutes later, Bumpy's phone rang. 9:07 that morning. The voice on the other end was distorted, mechanical, impossible to recognize. Bumpy Johnson, you're fast. I'm impressed. Bumpy's hand tightened around the phone. In the background, he heard it. A girl crying. "Baba, don't give them money, they're going to." The sound cut off. Muffled. Someone had covered her mouth. "Let me talk to her." Bumpy's voice was controlled, but his knuckles were white. "No." "What do you want money?" "I'll bring it right now. 5 million, 10 million, whatever you want." The distorted voice laughed. Cold. Cruel. "Huh. No, Bumpy. You don't get to write the rules anymore. You play by mine." What came next turned the entire hunt into something far more twisted than Bumpy had imagined. The voice continued, calm and deliberate. "You have 45 minutes. I'm going to send you to 3 locations. At each location, there's a riddle. Answer correctly, I give you the next address. Answer wrong or arrive late, your daughter loses a finger. Simple." Bumpy's jaw clenched. "This isn't about money." "No, it never was." The voice paused. "First location, McGlory's Bar, Little Italy. You have 15 minutes. Come alone. No bodyguards, no backup. I'll know if you cheat." The line went dead. Bumpy stood frozen for 3 seconds. Then he moved faster than he had in 20 years. Grabbed his coat. Headed for the door. Junie tried to follow. Bumpy stopped him with a look. "Stay here. Coordinate the teams. If I don't call in 30 minutes, tear this city apart." 9:12 that morning. Bumpy walked into McGlory's Bar. Empty. Dark. The chairs were stacked on tables. No bartender. No customers. Just him and the silence. On the bar counter sat a single envelope. White. Unmarked. Bumpy opened it with steady hands. Inside was a photograph. Black and white. Faded. Dated 1945. The photo showed a younger Bumpy, fists raised, standing over a man bleeding on the ground. Beneath the photo, written in red ink. What was his name? "You have 60 seconds. Bumpy stared at the image. His mind raced. 1945. 16 years ago. He'd hurt a lot of men that year. Broken bones, shattered faces, made examples. But this man, who was he? 50 seconds. Think. Focus. The location in the photo, a warehouse, South Harlem. That narrows it down. The man's face, broken nose, scar over his left eye, working for someone. But who? 40 seconds. Bumpy closed his eyes, forced himself back to 1945. The war was ending. Dutch Schultz's organization was crumbling. Bumpy was taking over territory. This man had tried to stop him. Tried to collect protection money on a block that belonged to Bumpy. 30 seconds. What was his name? Michael something. Irish. Worked for Schultz until Schultz died, then worked for the highest bidder. 20 seconds. Michael O'Brien. That was it. Michael the Hammer. O'Brien. Bumpy had beaten him unconscious in front of 20 witnesses, sent a message to anyone thinking about challenging Bumpy's territory. 10 seconds. Bumpy grabbed the phone on the bar, dialed the number written on the back of the photo. Michael O'Brien. 3 seconds of silence. Then the distorted voice returned. "Correct. Next location, Pier 17, Brooklyn. You have 18 minutes. Bumpy ran. The riddle game wasn't just about finding Ruthie. It was about digging up ghosts Bumpy had buried long ago. 9:28 that morning. Bumpy arrived at Pier 17. The docks were deserted. Ships creaked in the water. Seagulls circled overhead. On a wooden post at the edge of the pier sat a small metal box. Bumpy opened it. Inside was something that made his blood run cold. A wedding ring. Gold. Worn. Engraved on the inside H&E 1940. His hands started shaking. This was Helen's ring. His first wife. The woman no one knew about. The woman who died 18 years ago. The secret Bumpy had kept buried since 1943. A piece of paper lay beneath the ring. The question was simple. Who killed her? Bumpy stood at the edge of the pier, staring at the ring, and for the first time that morning, fear crept into his chest. This wasn't just about Ruthie. This was about Helen. About the past. About a debt Bumpy thought he'd paid in full. Helen Johnson died in 1943. Officially, it was a car accident. Tragic, sudden, random. But Bumpy knew the truth. Salvatore Maranzano had her killed. A message to Bumpy. A warning to stay out of Maranzano's business. Bumpy hadn't stayed out. 6 months later, Salvatore Maranzano was found in an alley with his throat cut. No witnesses, no arrests. Just a body and a clear message: touch Bumpy's family, and you die. But no one knew. Bumpy never spoke about Helen, never mentioned her name. Maybelle didn't know about her. His men didn't know. This was a secret Bumpy kept locked away for 18 years. Until today. Bumpy picked up the phone attached to the box. Salvatore Maranzano. And I killed him. The distorted voice came back, but this time there was something different in it. Satisfaction. Good. Now you understand, Bumpy. This isn't about money. This is about blood. This is about debts that never get paid. This is about justice. Bumpy's voice was ice. Who are you? You'll find out soon enough. Final location, Red Hook. Warehouse 43. You have 27 minutes. Don't be late, Ellsworth. Your daughter's counting on you. The line went dead. Bumpy stared at Helen's ring in his palm. Then he closed his fist around it and ran. The pieces were falling into place. But the truth was worse than he imagined. 9:42 that morning. Bumpy called Junie from a payphone 3 blocks from Red Hook. Warehouse 43, Red Hook. Get everyone there. Surround it now. Junie's voice was tense. Boss, this is a trap. You know it's a trap. I know. But Ruthie's in there. Then let us go in first. Let us... No. Bumpy's voice was final. Get your men in position. But I go in alone. Bumpy, you'll die. If Ruthie dies because I brought an army, I won't be able to live with myself. Bumpy hung up. 6 minutes later, he was standing outside Warehouse 43. 9:48 that morning. The warehouse loomed in front of him. 3 stories of brick and broken windows, dark, silent, deadly. Junie and Willie were positioned in the back with 5 men. Guns ready, waiting for Bumpy's signal. Junie's voice came through the radio. We're in position. Say the word and we storm the front. Bumpy clicked the radio off. He looked at the warehouse door, took a breath, and made a choice that could cost him everything. I'm going in alone. Boss Yule. Bumpy dropped the radio, walked to the door. No backup, no weapons, just him and whatever waited inside. Junie's voice screamed through the radio he'd left on the ground. Bumpy, don't, you'll get yourself killed. But Bumpy was already inside. 9:51 that morning. The warehouse was black as death. No lights, just thin streams of moonlight filtering through cracked windows. Bumpy's footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. Every step forward felt like walking toward his own grave. He could hear breathing, multiple people. Somewhere ahead. Somewhere in the dark. Then all at once, the lights blazed on. Bumpy froze. In the center of the warehouse, tied to a chair, was Ruthie. Alive. Terrified. Tears streaming down her face. Surrounding her were 6 men in black masks, each holding a gun pointed directly at Bumpy. And behind Ruthie, standing in the shadows, was a man without a mask. Old, scarred, smiling, Bumpy's face went white. His breath caught. Because he knew that face. He knew those eyes. The old man stepped forward into the light. Hello, Ellsworth. It's been a long time. The name hung in the air like poison. Antonio Maranzano, son of the man Bumpy had killed 17 years ago. Bumpy's voice was barely a whisper. You died in 1944. The fire. Everyone said you died. Antonio laughed, cold, bitter. Died no, Bumpy. I disappeared. I let the world think I was dead so I could watch you, study you, learn everything about you. 17 years, Ellsworth. 17 years waiting for this moment. He circled Ruthie's chair slowly, like a predator savoring the kill. 1943. You killed my father because he killed your wife. An eye for an eye, right? You lost Helen. I lost my father. Fair trade. Antonio's voice grew harder. Except it wasn't fair. You got to rebuild. You got to remarry. You got Maybelle. You got Ruthie. You got happiness again. He stopped behind Ruthie, placed both hands on her shoulders. She flinched. But me, I got 17 years of pain. 17 years of watching you live while my father rotted in the ground. 17 years planning how to make you feel what I felt. The clock on the wall read 9:56. 11 minutes until the deadline. 11 minutes until whatever Antonio had planned reached its conclusion. Antonio pulled out a revolver. Chrome. Polished. He pressed the barrel against the back of Ruthie's head. Now, Ellsworth, you're going to understand what it means to lose everything. Ruthie's voice cracked. Bah, don't listen to him. Bumpy took a step forward. Stop whatever you want from me, I'll do it. Anything. Everything. Just don't hurt her. Antonio's finger rested on the trigger. Anything. Yes. Good. Antonio smiled. Because I don't want your money, Bumpy. Money means nothing to me. What came next was more twisted than any amount Bumpy could have paid. Antonio gestured to a table against the wall. On it sat 2 phones. Black. Identical. I want you to choose. Bumpy's eyes narrowed. Choose what? Your future. Antonio walked to the table, keeping the gun trained on Ruthie. Left phone. You call Vito Genovese. You tell him you're surrendering Harlem. All of it. Every block, every business, every connection you've built for 30 years. You hand it over. He tapped the right phone. Right phone. You call your wife, Maybelle. You tell her the truth about how you made your fortune. Every person you hurt. Every innocent person you destroyed to climb to power. Every dirty secret you've kept from her for 3 decades. Bumpy's hands trembled. If I choose one, I let Ruthie go. Antonio's smile widened. But the entire city will know. Left phone, everyone knows Bumpy Johnson surrendered like a coward. Right phone, everyone knows Bumpy Johnson is a monster who built his empire on innocent blood. Either way, the reputation what you spent 30 years building dies in 60 seconds. The choice wasn't about money. It was about destroying the man Bumpy had become. 10:02 that morning, 5 minutes left. The warehouse was silent except for Ruthie's quiet sobbing and the ticking of the clock. Choose Bumpy. Antonio's voice was ice. Or I choose for you. Ruthie shook her head. But don't do anything. Let them. Bumpy looked at his daughter, 16 years old, terrified, tied to a chair with a gun to her head. Then he looked at the 2 phones. Both paths led to ruin. Both paths destroyed everything he'd built. Then slowly, calmly, Bumpy sat down on the floor. Antonio frowned. What are you doing? Bumpy crossed his legs, leaned back, and started laughing. Quiet at first, then louder. The sound echoed through the warehouse like breaking glass. Antonio's finger tightened on the trigger. Have you lost your mind? Bumpy's laughter stopped. His face went cold. Stone. Antonio, you think you've won, don't you? I have won. No. Bumpy stood up slowly. You lost the moment you started this. The confidence in his voice made Antonio hesitate, just for a second. But a second was all Bumpy needed to shift the entire game. Bumpy walked forward, slow, deliberate. 17 years, you watched me, followed me, learned how I think, how I operate, how I react under pressure. He stopped 10 feet from Antonio. But you forgot one thing, Antonio. I was watching you too. Antonio's gun hand shook. You didn't know I existed. Didn't I? Bumpy's voice was calm. Too calm. 3 weeks ago, black sedan outside my house. Same car, 3 different days. You think I didn't notice? I noticed. And I let you keep watching. Antonio's face went pale. 1 week ago, Man at the corner store asking Ruthie about her school. You think I didn't know that was your man? I knew. And I let him ask. Bumpy took another step forward. This morning, when you took Ruthie, when you left that blood-written note, you think I panicked? I didn't. Because I knew exactly what you'd do. You're predictable, Antonio. You've always been predictable. Antonio's voice cracked. You're lying. Am I? Bumpy tilted his head. If I'm lying, how did I know you'd have 6 men in this room? How did I know you'd send me to 3 locations before bringing me here? How did I know you'd want me to come alone? The gun in Antonio's hand dropped an inch. You couldn't have. I didn't set this up. Bumpy's voice was steel. You kidnapped my daughter. That part was real. But you thought I'd come unprepared. You thought I wouldn't have a backup plan. Bumpy clapped his hands twice, sharp, loud. The lights went out. 10 seconds of total darkness. Chaos. Shouting. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. Gunfire. 3 shots. 4. Then silence. When the lights came back on, the scene had transformed completely. Junie stood behind 2 of the masked men, guns to their heads. Willie had disarmed another 3. The 6th lay unconscious on the ground. Antonio's revolver was on the floor, kicked 10 feet away. And Antonio himself was on his knees, hands behind his head, surrounded. Bumpy walked over, picked up Antonio's gun, checked the chamber. Fully loaded. He looked down at the man who'd spent 17 years planning this revenge. You were so focused on making me suffer, Bumpy said quietly. You forgot I've been surviving in this world longer than you've been alive. Antonio's face was white, shaking. How? Junie and Willie were in the building before I arrived. Crawled through the ventilation system. Been hiding in the ceiling for 20 minutes. Bumpy crouched down to Antonio's eye level. You gave me 3 locations. 3 riddles. 45 minutes to solve them. You think that was for Ruthie's safety? No. It was so I'd arrive here exactly when you wanted, alone, desperate, broken. He stood up. But I turned your timeline against you. While you were busy playing puppet master, my men were getting into position. The clock read 10:05. 2 minutes until the deadline. 2 minutes left of the 2-hour countdown that started this nightmare. Antonio's voice shook. You planned all this? No. You kidnapped my daughter. That was real. But you assumed I'd be too panicked to think clearly. You assumed wrong. Bumpy chambered a round in Antonio's gun. That's the difference between revenge and survival. Revenge makes you stupid. Survival makes you sharp. He pointed the gun at Antonio's head. The moment stretched. Ruthie's voice broke through. Bah. Bumpy's hand didn't waver. Antonio closed his eyes. Do it. Kill me like you killed my father. Silence. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then Bumpy lowered the gun. Antonio's eyes opened. Confused. Terrified. Why aren't you? Because if I kill you, I become you. Bumpy's voice was quiet. Fine, Al. 17 years. That's how long you spent living for this moment. 17 years of hate. 17 years of planning revenge. And where did it get you? On your knees? Defeated. Humiliated. He tossed the gun aside. I'm not spending the next 17 years becoming what you became. Bumpy walked to Ruthie, cut the ropes binding her wrists, pulled her into his arms. She collapsed against him, sobbing. Bah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, baby. Nothing. This wasn't your fault. He held her tight. You're safe now. That's all that matters. Over Ruthie's shoulder, Bumpy looked at Antonio. Still on his knees. Broken, destroyed without a single bullet fired. I'm not killing you, Antonio. But you'll live with this shame, every day, every hour. The entire underworld will know you spent 17 years planning revenge against Bumpy Johnson. And you lost without me firing a single shot. Bumpy carried Ruthie toward the exit. Junie and Willie followed, weapons still trained on the 6 masked men. Behind them, Antonio Maranzano knelt in the center of the empty warehouse. Alone. The sound of his sobbing echoed off the concrete walls. 10:07 that morning. The deadline passed, but Ruthie Johnson was alive, safe in her father's arms, walking out into the morning sun. And Antonio Maranzano learned what Bumpy had known for 30 years. Real power isn't about who you can destroy. It's about who you can save, and what you're willing to sacrifice to save them. 10:15 that morning. Bumpy walked through the front door of his house on 122nd Street carrying Ruthie in his arms. Maybelle ran down the stairs, grabbed her daughter, held her like she'd never let go. All 3 of them stood in the hallway, crying, holding each other. Bumpy sat down on the couch, exhausted, drained. Every muscle in his body felt like lead. Junie stood in the doorway, hesitant. "Boss, what do we do about Antonio?" Bumpy didn't look up. Let him live. But I said let him live. Bumpy's voice was final. But letting Antonio live wasn't mercy. It was strategy. And by 4 o'clock that afternoon, the entire city would understand why. Bumpy picked up the phone, dialed Frank Costello. "Frank, I need you to do something for me." "What is it?" "Spread the word across every borough. Antonio Maranzano spent 17 years planning revenge against me. I dismantled it in 2 hours without firing a single bullet." Frank was quiet for a moment. "You want to ruin his reputation?" "No." Bumpy's voice was ice. "I want to kill it. Blood washes away with blood. But reputation, that only dies with truth." The message went out that night. By morning, every mobster, every street soldier, every boss in New York knew the story. Antonio Maranzano had lost. Not in a gunfight, not in a war, but in a battle of minds. And he'd been humiliated. The next day, the 5 families called a meeting, not to discuss business, but to pass judgment. June 16, 1961, 2 in the afternoon, the Ravenite Social Club. 5 men sat around a table: Frank Costello, Vito Genovese, Carlo Gambino, Tommy Lucchese, Joe Bonanno, the most powerful crime bosses in America. Antonio Maranzano was dragged into the room by 2 guards, hands cuffed, face bruised, defeated. Genovese looked at Bumpy. "What do you want from this meeting?" Bumpy stood, slowly, his voice carried through the room like a judge delivering a sentence. "I want everyone here to understand one thing. Family is the red line. You cross it, you don't fight one man, you fight a system." He pointed at Antonio. This man spent 17 years planning the perfect revenge, meticulous, detailed, flawless. But he forgot something. When you threaten what a man loves most, you don't break him. You awaken something worse. Bumpy walked closer to Antonio. "I could have killed him yesterday, put a bullet in his head, but I didn't, because I want him to live. I want him to watch everything he built crumble. I want him to see his name become a warning." The room was silent. Every boss understood what Bumpy was really saying. This wasn't just about Antonio. This was about setting a precedent. Genovese spoke first. "Antonio, you violated the code. You know the penalty." Antonio said nothing, just stared at the floor. Carlo Gambino leaned forward. "Exile, permanent. You leave New York and never come back." Bumpy interrupted. "Not enough." Gambino frowned. "What else do you want, you? $5 million. Antonio's head snapped up. "I don't have that kind of money." "Then sell." Bumpy's voice was cold. "Sell your house, sell your property, sell everything. You wanted to make me suffer. Now it's my turn." Genovese nodded slowly. $5 million. 1 month. If you don't pay, we'll take it ourselves." The gavel came down. Antonio Maranzano was finished. After the meeting, Frank Costello pulled Bumpy aside. They stood alone in the hallway. Frank lit a cigarette. You could have killed him. Why didn't you? Bumpy looked out the window. You know what hurts more than death. Frank. Frank shook his head. Living with failure, waking up every day knowing you lost. Bumpy turned to face him. If I kill Antonio, he dies a martyr. His followers remember him as a hero. But if he lives as a broken man, nobody remembers him. That's real revenge. Frank smiled. You're smarter than most people give you credit for. I learned a long time ago. Violence is easy, strategy is power. 1 month later, the money arrived. July 17, 1961. A courier delivered a briefcase to Bumpy's house. Inside was $5 million, every cent Antonio Maranzano owned. Bumpy opened it, counted it, closed it. Maybelle walked into the room. Ellsworth, what are you going to do with all that money? Bumpy looked at Ruthie sitting on the couch, still recovering from the trauma. You'll see. 3 days later, Bumpy held a press conference in Harlem. Reporters filled the room. Cameras flashed. He stood at a podium, calm, composed, and made an announcement that shocked everyone. I'm establishing the Ruthie Johnson Scholarship Fund, $5 million, to send children from Harlem to college, every year as many kids as the fund can support. A reporter raised his hand. Mr. Johnson, why are you doing this? Bumpy glanced at Ruthie standing in the back of the room. Because money can buy power, but education creates it. I want the children of Harlem to have choices I never had. The fund was signed and sealed. The first class of recipients was announced 6 months later. 23 kids, all from Harlem, all heading to college. Ruthie asked her father one night sitting on the porch, "But why didn't you keep the money?" Bumpy looked at his daughter. Because the best revenge isn't making your enemy suffer. It's proving they were wrong about you. 14 years passed. The fund grew. More children went to college, hundreds of them, each one carrying a piece of Bumpy's legacy. 1975, Columbia University, graduation day. A young woman named Grace Washington stood at the podium receiving her doctorate in medicine. The first person in her family to attend college, the first to become a doctor. In her speech, she said something that made the entire auditorium stand and applaud. I'm here today because of a man society called a criminal. But he taught me something no classroom ever could. Your past doesn't define your future. He could have chosen revenge. But he chose to build. In the audience, Ruthie Johnson sat with tears streaming down her face. 30 years old now, married, children of her own. But still she remembered. June 15, 1961. 2 hours that changed everything. After the ceremony, Grace found Ruthie. You're Ruthie Johnson. The scholarship is named after you. Ruthie nodded. My father started it, after something terrible happened to me. He wanted something good to come from it. Grace hugged her. Your father saved my life. He saved hundreds of lives. Thank you. Ruthie smiled through her tears. He would have been proud to hear you say that. But not everyone thrived after that day in June 1961. Some fell into darkness and never climbed out. 1968. A small house in New Jersey. Antonio Maranzano sat alone, bankrupt, forgotten. The news came on the radio. Bumpy Johnson had died. Heart attack, surrounded by family. Antonio didn't feel relief. He felt shame. 7 years of exile, 7 years of poverty, 7 years of being a ghost. And now the man who'd beaten him was gone. And Antonio had nothing. That night he wrote a letter. To Ruthie. He never sent it. But he wrote it. You don't know me, but I know you. I wanted to kill you to hurt your father, but he taught me the cruelest lesson of all. Revenge doesn't heal wounds. It creates new ones. I spent 17 years planning. He destroyed it in 2 hours. And it took me my entire life to understand. He won from the beginning. The letter stayed in a drawer, unsent, unread. Antonio died 3 years later, alone, forgotten, exactly as Bumpy had intended. The funeral of Bumpy Johnson drew 5,000 people, among them 347 college graduates, all funded by the Ruthie Johnson Scholarship. They didn't know the full story, but they knew this man had given them a future. Junie gave the eulogy. Bumpy Johnson wasn't a saint. He had blood on his hands. He made mistakes. But on June 15, 1961, he made a choice. He chose to be a father instead of a gangster. He chose to build instead of destroy. And that choice changed 347 lives. After everyone left, Ruthie stood alone at her father's grave. She spoke quietly, as if he could still hear her. "Bae, I never told you this. That day you saved me, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid you'd become a monster to save me." She wiped her eyes. "But you didn't. You won with your mind, not violence. You forgave with strength, not weakness. And you turned pain into hope." She turned and looked at the 347 graduates standing behind her waiting. "You see, this isn't the legacy of a gangster. This is the legacy of a father. A man who proved 2 hours can change everything, not because of who you can destroy, but because of who you can save." The sun set over Harlem. The city moved on, but the story remained. June 15, 1961. The day Bumpy Johnson saved his daughter, and in doing so saved hundreds more.